All right, today we're diving into an incredible, real-life story from the American frontier that honestly sounds like it's straight out of a movie. It's a story about capture, some serious bravery, and a desperate race against time. So let's get right into it.
Okay, just imagine this for a second. You've been captured. You're miles from home, you don't have any weapons, and there's no way to fight back. Your only hope is that somebody is out there looking for you. So how do you help them find you? That is the exact problem at the heart of the story we're telling today. So, picture this. It's July 14th, 1776. That's just 10 days after the Declaration of Independence was signed. And on this quiet little stretch of the Kentucky River, you've got three teenage girls just enjoying a lazy summer afternoon, drifting along in their canoe. They have absolutely no idea that they're being watched. And then, just like that, their peaceful afternoon is completely shattered. This is the moment everything changes and a fight for their lives begins. So who are these girls? Well, one of them is Jemima Boone. And yes, that's the 13-year-old daughter of the legendary frontiersman Daniel Boone. She's with her friends Elizabeth and Frances Calloway. Out of what seems like nowhere, a war party of Cherokee and Shawnee men, led by a leader named Hanging Maw, just storms out of the woods, grabs their canoe, and yanks them onto the shore. They're captives. But this wasn't just some random, senseless attack. To really get why these girls were taken, we have to zoom out and look at the world they were living in, a frontier that was just boiling over with conflict. For years, this whole area was basically a powder keg waiting to explode. See, the British government had drawn this line on a map back in 1763 and told settlers, hey, don't cross this. But people like the Boones, they just kept pushing west anyway, right onto land that tribes like the Cherokee and Shawnee had called home for generations. Treaties were signed, then they were broken. It all led to violent conflicts that pushed Native Americans off their own land. So this abduction, it wasn't random at all. It was an act of war.
And this right here, this really gets to the heart of the problem. You had two groups with completely, totally different ways of seeing the world. The settlers saw this land as something you could claim, put a fence around, and own. But for the Cherokee and Shawnee, this exact same land was their ancestral hunting ground. It was a shared resource that their entire way of life depended on, not something one person could just own.
So why take captives in the first place? Well, it actually served a few purposes. First, it was a terrifying warning to other settlers, stay away. Second, captives were sometimes adopted into tribes to replace family members who'd been lost in all the fighting. But in this case, there was a third and really crucial reason. One of the girls was Jemima Boone. As Daniel Boone's daughter, she was a huge prize, a political bargaining chip in this whole frontier war. But let's get back to the trail. The girls weren't just helpless victims here. Oh no, they were fighting back, using the only weapons they had, their brains, and their incredible knowledge of the wilderness. And you have to see how incredibly smart they were about this. They pretended to be exhausted, stumbling and falling just to slow the whole group down. And all the while, they were secretly leaving this trail of clues, snapping tiny twigs on trees, dropping leaves. At one point, their captors put Jemima on a horse to try and speed things up. So what does she do? She pinches and kicks the horse until it bucks her right off. I mean, talk about a brilliant and gutsy move. And that clever little secret trail, it was their only hope. Because back at Fort Boonesboro, a rescue party was already getting organized, and it was now a desperate race against the clock. For 3 long days, they were marched deeper and deeper into territory they didn't know. Just imagine that. 3 days of being terrified and uncertain, wondering if anyone was even coming for them, or if they'd ever see their homes again. But help was on the way. Her father, the one and only Daniel Boone, put together a small party of 9 men. And because of Jemima's brilliant trail of broken twigs and other clues, they were actually able to track them through the dense forest. Finally, on that 3rd day, they caught up. After a very short, very fierce fight, the girls were rescued. They were safe. But this is where the story gets really interesting and kind of surprising. After she was rescued, Jemima said this: "The Indians were kind to us, as much so as they could have been." The rescuers were stunned. The girls weren't hurt at all, so why would captors in a brutal war be kind? Well, the answer is in the culture of their captors. You see, in Shawnee society, women held a really important and respected position. They were essential to the community. So harming captive women actually went against their social customs. It's one of those details that adds a whole new layer to the story, and it makes you think, right? So the girls made it home safely, but their story, it was far from over. In fact, this one dramatic event would end up having this huge, lasting legacy, becoming way more than just a little footnote in a history book.
Jemima's incredible survival story basically became a frontier legend. It was the perfect example of both the dangers and the heroism of that time. But its biggest impact actually came 50 years later, when an author named James Fenimore Cooper heard the story, and he used it as the direct inspiration for one of the most famous American novels ever written, The Last of the Mohicans. That book, and the movies that came from it, took the real-life experience of these three teenagers and turned it into this iconic piece of American culture that we still know so well today.
And that right there is the amazing power of a single story. A terrifying 3-day ordeal on the Kentucky frontier, echoed through time, shaping a piece of literature that defines how a lot of us picture that period in history. It really makes you wonder, how many other real-life stories of incredible bravery and conflict are just hiding beneath the surface of the history we think we know?